Hey everyone, and welcome to another Nintendo Dadcast countdown. Today's countdown is 7 things I miss about retro gaming and 3 things I love about modern gaming. Before I get into the list though, it's a very nice fall day here. Day before Halloween. I've been playing a lot of Alan Wake 2. I've got all my windows open downstairs. I'm the only one home right now, and I just heard a door slam. Scared the hell out of me. But I realized the dining room door was open and the dining room windows are open. That is what was slammed shut. But I was like, don't play too much of Alan Wake, especially late at night, man. It gets into your head. But anyways, let's get into this list. And again, this is not a top 7 list of like, oh, the first thing I list is the worst and the best thing. This is just kind of a train of thought. How I wrote it down when I came up with the list, kind of thing like that. But let's start off with number 7. And one of the things I do really kind of miss about the retro game is you have the same IP, but you have different companies making it. First thing that comes to mind are the Disney games in the 16-bit era. For the Super Nintendo, we had Capcom making the games, like Aladdin, Lion King, the two that jump to mind real quick. And then on Sega, Virgin Interactive made the Aladdin game. I think they made the Lion King game also. I don't remember like off the top of my head, but Sega had their own like licensing rights as well for the Disney games, like Nintendo did, or like Capcom did, and Capcom just made it for the Super Nintendo. So we got 2 games, but 2 different versions of the game. And that just, I love the debate it creates where some people, if you had the Super Nintendo Aladdin, you love that version. And if you had the Sega version, you love the Sega version. Me, I grew up with Super Nintendo version. A good buddy of mine had the Sega version, so I did play both as a kid. I did prefer the Super Nintendo version, probably because I owned it. If I had a Genesis and I played that more, I probably would have enjoyed that one more. I have been meaning to pick up that Disney collection for the Switch. I think it's also out on PlayStation and Xbox as well. That has both versions of the games of Aladdin and I believe Lion King also. To kind of like, oh, almost lost my list. To do kind of a side-by-side comparison of both games as an adult. So like, oh, which one is better? I do know a couple people have done that. I want to say Scott the Woz did, and I think he preferred the Super Nintendo version. And I believe the Angry Video Game Nerd did that as well, and also preferred the Super Nintendo version. I think. I know one of them definitely did. I just can't remember if it was Scott or Angry Video Game Nerd. I want to say it was Scott, more likely. But I know a bunch of people have done that, and they all have their opinions on it. So that's the first thing you mentioned in the comment. Which Aladdin version did you like better? But also like the Disney games, but the WWE games. They were all published by THQ, but they were all so different. Like the N64 games, which I feel are the best games made by AKI, were still, in my opinion, still the best wrestling games ever made because there was a degree of depth to them, but simplicity too, where you can just pick up and play. You can learn really quickly, and if you've watched some of my shorts, you've seen my toddler playing No Mercy on the CRT TV. So, and then SmackDown, or not SmackDown, Sony, the PlayStation versions had their own SmackDown versus Raw games, or just I think it was just SmackDown at first, and then it became SmackDown versus Raw, and those played differently. And then Xbox had the Raw games, which I never played. I heard they weren't that good. But also Dreamcast had the Royal Rumble game. So we had WWE games. They were all published by THQ, but they were all made by different people, and so we got different flavors. The SmackDown games and the No Mercy games were probably the better ones. I will, after, the N64 died, and I don't... Oh, yeah, we did. Oh, we also got the WrestleMania games and WWE Reckoning for the GameCube. So it was just all over the place. Just like we were just getting all different kinds of WWE games. And that was really cool. Kind of the same thing with Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. We had Acclaim making some WWE games, and we had LGN making some WWE games. So we just had a bunch of different like game makers making different games and things like that. And that can also kind of be said for sports games in a sense. We had a bunch of different Major League Baseball games. We had a bunch of different NFL games. I don't think we had a bunch of different hockey games as far as the NHL license went. I think that was always EA. I know we had Blades of Steel on the Nintendo. Oh no, we did have Wayne Gretzky's hockey on the N64. So yeah, you kind of had competition for your dollar with these different licenses and IPs. So you had to pull out all the stops to make the better game. So I think I do miss that a lot when it comes to modern games, because for the most part now, NFL's Madden, NBA's 2K, NHL's EA. Well, I mean NFL's Madden, which is also EA, and we don't have like EA making a baseball game anymore. It's all MLB The Show done by Sony San Diego or San Monica, whatever is the studio that handles the MLB license. So we don't really have that anymore. And when it comes to big IPs, we only have one Spider-Man game, and that's with Sony. We only have we kind of have different Avengers games, but they're all over the place, especially with quality. But yeah, we don't have these competing games with multiple IPs going anywhere, which I really miss. I think that was really cool. All right, number 6. I miss buying a brand new game, bringing it home, putting it in my system, and it just playing. No day one patch, no downloading to the system. I just plug it in and play. I mean, we still get that for the most part with the Switch. Very rarely, like occasionally I'll buy a new Switch game and there'll be an update. But generally speaking, it's not day one. Generally, it's like I didn't buy the game at launch. It's been out for a little bit, and so there's been updates. But, back in the day with the Super Nintendo, N64, PlayStation, Xbox, boom, you put your game in, it started right away. I mean, with the disc-based games, we did have loading, but the loading was still not like hours long. Sometimes it can be when you buy a brand new game and there's a day one patch and you're like, especially like someone like me, any adult, I should say, not just someone like me, but any adult who works a job and you get off at like 4 or 5 o'clock, you stop by the store, pick up the game on your way home, or, it got delivered to you by Amazon or Best Buy or something like that. It's waiting on your doorstep. But you're getting home, it's like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and you want to play the game, but you got that day one patch. So maybe if you're lucky, you get to play it by 7 o'clock, probably 8, but then you're making dinner and you're getting the kids to bed and everything like that. So it's like 9, 10 o'clock before you can get to play your game. And that's if you got to install it right when you got home. So I remember Star Wars Battlefront, I bought when I got my PS4. I bought it from Newegg, and they had a Star Wars bundle. So I got Battlefront, and I got a bunch of retro games for the PlayStation 4. It took almost all day for Battlefront to download, and my PlayStation was plugged in, and I had high-speed internet and everything like that, so it wasn't the internet. It was just, that game just took forever to download, the patches and everything. I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So I do miss, and like I said, the Switch still does it. Like for the most part, the Switch, any game you buy for the Switch day one, you put it in there. And even if there is an update, it's generally so small that maybe you're waiting 10 minutes, if that. I think the longest I've waited for an update for the Switch to download, 15 minutes, probably. And that's like if I bought the cartridge, not buying digitally and having it download. So I do miss that for the most part. And it's a shame, like, because it's just the most annoying thing when you buy a disc and you have to. It doesn't take as long as if you're just buying the digital version, but it still takes a while, and it's just so annoying. Especially like the bigger games, like your Call of Duties, your Maddens, things like that. I just miss the good old days of just putting the disc in, loads up, I play. All right, so we're at number 5, and again, if you watch my shorts, you would have seen me make fun of this. End user license agreements, or the EULAs. We didn't have to deal with those. Again, you just put your game in, you played it. You didn't have to agree to a bunch of terms, pages and pages of terms that you're not reading, but all boil down to is you don't own this game. You own the disc. You don't own this game. You have purchased a license to play this game. And we can take that away. We can kill the servers at any time, and doesn't matter. Kind of thing like that. We didn't worry about that back in the day. Or if you're a retro gamer today, you don't have to worry about that with the retro games. All those cartridges back there, all those N64 carts, those are mine. I own those. Those are my games. They can't take them away. There's no updates. I put them in my N64, put them in my GameCube. They play. Same with my Dreamcast, PlayStation games over there, SNES, NES, all those mine. Mine. But those Switch games technically, nope. I just own a license to all those physical games. Same with my Xbox Series games over there and my PS5 games over there. I only own the license. I don't actually own the game. So that's just a bummer kind of thing like that. Now, granted, most games that I buy these days are single player story driven games. So they're not online all the time games. I don't have to worry about servers or things like that. So generally speaking, even though I only own a license to play the game, I don't really have to worry about those games shutting down because I don't use any really of the online features. Like the only games I have to worry about that with are last year's Madden, which I still play because I don't buy Madden every year, but I have Game Pass Ultimate, so EA Access Plus, whatever EA's thing is called, I always download the latest Madden at the end of the season when it's free on there. But yeah, WWE 2K24, that that kind of stinks because the online, they shut down the servers eventually, so the online creations, I can't download new superstars and things like that, and it's so detailed and complicated now. I'm not making my own superstars. If I want Sting in 2K24, I'm downloading someone's version of Sting. I'm not going through all that trouble. So those are kind of that's a pitfall. But again, because I'm more of a single player game player, I don't have to worry too much about those kind of things. But they are there, kind of thing like that. And I think the Crew, one of the Crew games, is one of the ones that recently got shut down, and you can't even play that, single player anymore. So that does stink. It does stink that we don't actually own our games anymore. Unlike, those carts back there, I own those. I own those games. They are mine, kind of thing. So, yeah, that is number 5. 7, 6, 5. And coming in at number 4, for the most part, games did not have a bunch of padding to get to a certain hour mark. It's just, the game makers made their game like Mario. The Mario games are just the Mario games. And, well, for the most part, with the exception of like side quest collectathon stuff and the 3D Mario ones, the 2D Mario games are just 2D Mario games. But it feels like a lot of the times now when you play a game, like the game would be like a 10 if it was like a tidy like 8-10 hour game. But people complain online about games not being at least like 20-30 hours for their price. And so game makers, they only have a 10-hour game, but they're like, if we don't make this 20 hours, we're going to get creamed on X and all the socials and things like that. So they do a bunch of fetch quests that just seem tedious at times, and lots of backtracking that you don't... I will say this. I know a lot of people love Metrovania games. I hate games that make me backtrack too much. It's an annoyance to me, mainly because I think it has to do with the way my brain works. I'm a very efficient person. I've been that way all my life because I did a lot of physical labor in my younger days. And so I would always look for the most efficient way to get things done. Like I start at point A, I get all the way to point B, and I'm done. I don't have to go back or anything like that. And I'm kind of still that way when I go on shopping trips. If I have to run a bunch of errands, I hit up the right side of the road on my way, and I hit up the left side coming back. That way I just everything down this way and everything coming back. I'm not zigzagging across because that's not efficient. So when I have to backtrack a lot in games, it messes with that efficiency part of my brain, and so it drives me insane. And sometimes it's worth it, like Metroid Dread, I really like, so I don't mind the backtracking. Like I said, playing Alan Wake now, there's a little bit of backtracking in there, but it makes sense. Like the backtracking works within the level design and everything like that. It's when games are constantly making you go back and forth, and just pad, and you just know when you're playing it's padding, and you're just like, just let me get to the next story beat. I don't want to do all this stuff, kind of thing like that. And I really think what game makers should do in that sense is, if you got an 8-hour game, make an 8-hour game. Add some side quests here and there, because that's what I love when I get a new game, or if I'm just curious how long it's going to take me to beat a game. When I go to howlongtobeat.com, and it says like main story 8 to 10 hours, all the side quests and completionist thing, and it gives you like there's another 10-15 hours to the game. Do that. Don't pad out the story, but add optional side quests to the game, like to make me, because I don't mind some of that stuff, like the old Final Fantasies, Chrono Trigger. I didn't mind grinding. I didn't mind going to find battles to get my character stronger so I could handle off the tougher bosses later on in the game. I don't mind doing things like that, but when it's like, but that's my choice to do it. Same with side quests. But when the game is forcing me to do all this stuff just so they can hit a certain hour mark, so they can avoid getting trashed online or by reviewers for the game being too short, don't do that. I am perfectly fine Like I can if it's a good 6 hour game, I don't mind a 6 hour game. Like if it's good, if it's a good fun experience, I'll play a 6 hour game and I'll pay full price for that 6 hour game. I don't mind because I've enjoyed it. And plus with the shorter games, if it's really good, I'll go back and play it again. Like I have no problem. Just give me replayability, new game plus, things like that that will keep me coming back. Like it's a shorter game, but it's like, hey, I beat this once. Oh, there's multiple endings. Let me go back and beat it again because I know it's not going to take me 40 hours to get another ending because I don't want to dedicate 80 hours to one game for two endings, kind of thing like that. So, yeah, let's stop padding out games. That's one thing about retro games that I don't mind. Now, not all retro games. Some did pad out their stories and things like that, but it was less of a thing, especially with like the 16-bit era where you had a lot of side-scrolling platformers. They didn't do a lot of padding. They got you from point A to point B, and that's kind of all the memory you could have. But once we hopped over to the PlayStation and we got into discs, that's when games really started getting longer and longer because they could. And sometimes the length was justified. I feel like Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 7, those lengths were justified. There was a lot of story, there were side quests in there, so big game that was fine by me. But then there's just some other games just like, you're just making me do this over again just because. I love Metal Gear Solid, but some of the backtracking they make you do in that game, I'm just like, come the F on. Just because it's an espionage game, and for the most part, you wouldn't be backtracking like that. If you're a spy trying to shut something down, you're going from point A to point B as quickly and as efficient as possible so you don't die. Kind of thing like that. But yeah, even with the 64-bit carts, Donkey Kong 64, I'm looking at you for padding out a game. You're collective on this. But yeah. So coming in at number 3, we've got video game magazines. I know that's not really games, and with Game Informer shutting its doors earlier this year, I think we did lose the last mass publication video game magazine in North America, or in the United States. I don't know, Canada could have something brewing, but I'm not 100% sure. And I missed that as a kid, pre-internet, not even pre-internet. I mean, game magazines were still going strong with the internet. You still had GamePro and EGM, Nintendo Power. But it was one of the coolest things, especially when you were a kid. You're at the newsstand or the bookstore with your parents, Walmart, any place with a magazine rack, and you would just grab, a Nintendo Power, EGM, GamePro, just look at all the new games coming out, check out some reviews, all that fun stuff. It was just nice. Like I've been really thinking, I've been contemplating picking up some old Game Informers, not Game Informers, Game Pros and Nintendo Powers, EGM. I loved EGM. I had a subscription to EGM for years. And also, because I shop at Surugai a couple times, I always check if they get any like Nintendo Dream 64, Famitsu, old magazines of those from the retro era. Just, again, kind of just like look and see. Just look at the pretty pictures. Just kind of take a peek into that window of old school gaming. It was just a lot of fun. And I know you can do that on the internet. But with all the pop-up ads, like anytime you go to just about any video game website, you just got this up. You can't see. I was like drawing across the screen. But like, let me do it. Like half this screen right here is an annoying ad. Then you got ads here on this side of the screen. You got a banner ad up here. It's just the most annoying thing. And so like you get this little window to actually see. And if there's nice hearts. Let me see if I can get that doing. Heart. There it goes. But you get this little banner. I lost my train of thought with the stupid hearts. But yeah, like if there's a picture to look at of the new game coming out, half of the image is cut off because of the ads at the bottom, the ads at the top, and the side. You can't see the full picture. Whereas a video game magazine, you have your whole magazine. You're like, oh, I can see the pictures and everything like that. Read the articles. I don't have to keep scrolling. And that's my preferred way to read any kind of thing. Like I prefer newspapers over reading it on the internet or the phone. I prefer magazines over the internet. I prefer books in my hand over a Kindle. That's just me. Probably the era I grew up in. I'm old. But yeah, I miss the video game magazines. And this kind of coalesce into that. Number 2, cheat codes. Some games have them nowadays, but most of them don't, because just about every game you have has an online aspect. So if there's a cheat code, you're going to be cheating online, and no one likes cheaters, especially in an online game, man. You people who cheat at COD and things like that, why? Just play the game. Have fun. Have fun like the rest of us and play the game. You don't need to cheat. But cheat codes like back in the day, like big head mode or tiny mode, or just, infinite lives in a single player game, things like that were great. Like none of us would have beaten Contra had we not had the Konami code. Don't lie, you can't beat it. I'm sure some people can, but most of us mere mortals, can't beat Contra without the Konami code. So codes and cheats and fun things like that change the aspect of the game, that kind of break the game but don't break the game, are awesome. And I do really miss them in modern games. Like, especially, I don't know, you're playing, I know you can set games on easy, and a lot of times easy mode is super easy, especially if you just want to see the story. But I do like the ability to give myself infinite ammo or a higher jump, or just cool things that you could do in game to make it more fun, make it easier, kind of thing like that. But yeah, so number 2 is cheat codes. And the last, number 1 thing on my list that I miss about retro gaming is couch co-op or couch versus, where 2 people in the room. I know some games you can still do. You can like play, most sports games you can play together or against each other. But a lot of games now, like, I can't remember if Halo Infinite added it in there, but like Halo Infinite, you couldn't play co-op together. It had to be on the internet. The newer Gears, you couldn't play together. It's split screen. It has to be on the internet. So a lot of like shooters, especially shooters, because a lot of us played like GoldenEye and Halo and stuff back in the day, you can't do that co-op anymore on the couch. It's got to be, someone has their own system. They play it on theirs, you play it on yours. I have to wonder if that's just to sell more copies. But like, well, if we allow couch co-op, then we're only selling 1 copy of the game. But if you have to play on an individual system, we're selling 2 copies of the game that way. So it is kind of annoying. I do kind of miss that, because there's more of a camaraderie when you're playing with or against somebody sitting right next to you, as opposed to, over the internet talking through a headset. It's just there's just something more when you're actually in person. There's that our need as humans to be together and everything like that. And the loss of couch co-op, couch versus, does kind of hurt that. I do have a lot of fun playing with my boys, whether we're playing the Dreamcast or the N64 or something like that. I do enjoy whether we're just handing the controller off kind of thing, or we're competing, or we're playing together. It is a lot of fun to do that. Instead, like playing Overwatch, when Sean wants to play Overwatch, he's got to go to his room, I'm up here, and we're playing in separate rooms. Even though we're in the same house, we're in separate rooms, kind of thing like that. You kind of lose something there, which it was kind of funny. I had a friend renting a room for me years ago, and his room was in the basement next to where all my other stuff was. And so he'd leave his door open when we'd play a game together. and if we weren't playing with like other friends, like for something like Overwatch or an online competitive game, he'd just leave his door open. We just yell at each other through the door. So even though it wasn't like couch co-op, I'm just failing at that. Even though it wasn't couch co-op, it felt that way, at least because we were separated by a room, but not by that much, and we could yell through the door, and it was a lot of fun. And you just kind of lose that over the internet, because you can't really yell over this your headset, because then it just pierces everybody's ears, and no one wants that. But you can like scream and yell and punch and shove and do camaraderie things with that. So the loss of couch co-op does stink, and I do like how some games are bringing it back and allowing it. That's a lot of fun, especially if you're younger and you have siblings that you're playing with and things like that. Or friends who come over and hang out. That's a lot more fun than doing it over the internet, kind of thing like that. So, and actually, I want to add to that LAN parties. I wish some games might do it. It's not something like that's advertised, but I would love it for especially like shooters, things like that, or MMOs. If you could do a LAN party, you don't have to be on the internet. You can just hook everyone's systems up together and play. You don't even need a server. You just play on the systems, kind of thing like that. I do miss that, because back in the heyday of Halo 1 through, definitely 1 and 2, maybe 3 as well. I can't remember if I did it that much with 3, because 3, Xbox 360, a lot of people were playing on the internet then. But getting together for LAN parties to play the Halo games with my friends and friends of friends, kind of thing like that. A buddy of mine, his friend, had a pretty big basement, and we would all bring our own TVs over and our own Xboxes, and we'd have 4 on 4 on 4. I think you could do up to 16, so 4 systems each. I think. Again, you're asking me to remember way back, but I think you could do at least 16. So we'd have at least 4 Xboxes and 4 TVs going, and it was a blast. You had 16 people gathered around just playing together. so much more fun than 16 people in 16 homes on 16 TVs on 16 systems talking to each other over headsets. So I do miss those days because it was a lot more fun, and you just had a blast. You just got a bunch of snacks and drinks and things like that, and you just hung out and had fun. That was your evening. You play for hours and hours. You'd start at 5-6 o'clock at night, and it'd be 2-3 in the morning when you're heading home. It was a blast. So those were the 7 things I miss about retro gaming. Now let's get on to the 3 things that I do love about modern gaming. Number 3 is save states. Being able to pick up where you left off immediately, like your Xbox or your PlayStation. You just put it in rest mode. You come back a few minutes later, a few days later, and you're picking up exactly where you left off. And it's not like the typewriter thing. You don't even, and for most games now have a bunch of saves while you're playing games. You hit checkpoints, it saves the game. But even if a game doesn't have a bunch of checkpoints, you just put the system in rest mode and you come back and you're exactly where you were. You didn't have to get to a save point. You didn't have to jump through any hoops, because sometimes life happens and I can't make it to a save point to play a game. I've been playing Final Fantasy VI on my Switch, and that's fantastic. I can just click the power button on my Switch and go do what I have to do. I didn't have to get to a save point. I didn't have to get to the world map to save, and boom, I am right there where I left off. Sometimes that's good because I'm yes, I'm right where I'm left off. Sometimes bad if it's been a few days or a week or two, because I think it's been a month since I picked up Final Fantasy, so it's going to take me a hot minute to remember what the hell I was doing. But I do love that about modern gaming, is I can just pick up and play where I left off, and I don't have to worry about reaching a save point if I have to go do something. And for those of you who are parents out there, anything can happen at a moment's notice, where a kid needs a ride someplace, or you got to go change diaper, or you got to do this, you got to do that, or whatever. Kid's sick at school and you got to rush off to school, and you don't want to leave your system on the entire time while you do that, because that's not good for power consumption. And I'm pretty sure the first red ring of death I got with my 360 is because I left it on for a couple hours because my wife wanted to do something, and I left the game just sitting there on, and I came back and I had the red ring of death. I'm pretty sure it's because I left it on for hours and hours without doing anything. So that's always made me paranoid about leaving systems on. So yeah, the save states. Number 2 is digital games / things like Game Pass. It's fantastic to be able to get digital games if it's a more obscure title that your local stores might not carry, and it might sell out online, or it might not deliver on release date. Something you really want to play, and you go to buy it from Amazon or Best Buy, is it's not gonna you're not gonna get it till a week later or something like that. So having the ability to buy a digital game so you can get it right at midnight so you can play the game, that's fantastic. I do love that aspect of digital games, even though I'm more of a physical media person. If I can get it, I waited a whole year to get Alan Wake because I wanted a physical copy, even though they didn't announce it. Then I figured because Control almost instantly went to Game Pass and was drastically discounted right away, I was like, oh, they're going to do that with Alan Wake. They never did. But then when they announced Alan Wake 2, the deluxe edition physical version, I was like, oh, I'll just wait for that and get that then. But yeah, the ability to play digital games or get digital games whenever. You don't have to worry about pre-ordering. You don't have to worry about going to the store and finding the game is sold out. You're like, damn, I can't play it right now. You can just buy the digital version and play it. Same with Game Pass, especially day one Microsoft games, or Capcom's had a few. I'm sure Square, other people have had a few day one games. Just being able to either play from the cloud or download that game on day one and play it, especially with Game Pass. Because I think I did the math. I think it's 3 or 4. If you play 3 or 4 day one games on Game Pass that you would have bought, but you played them on Game Pass instead, Game Pass pays for itself for the year. And it's even better if you go to CD Keys, or if someone's doing a sale for the 3-month pass and you do it that way, it's an even better value. So I love Game Pass for that matter. Plus, I just don't have to get up and change games. That's the best. That's one of the best things at all, but just being lazy. Especially when you're streaming. When you're streaming, it always sucks to get up and have to go change a disc and things like that. So yeah, Xbox Game Pass. I know PlayStation Plus has... I think it's PlayStation Plus. Whatever PlayStation has. I don't currently have it because I don't play any multiplayer games on PlayStation. It's not quite as good as Game Pass, but that gets an honorable mention in this category too. And number one of my favorite things about modern gaming is backwards compatibility. It's kind of retro now because the 360, PlayStation 2, those are kind of retro now. But that was more of a kind of going into the modern thing, and Xbox has continued it. Sony is kind of iffy on their backwards compatibility. But being able to play old games on modern systems, especially with modern conveniences, because at least with the Xbox, I'm not sure about the PlayStation. Because I don't even know if the PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible with discs anymore. But with the PlayStation or the Xbox Series, if I'm playing an Xbox game or if I'm playing a 360 game and I put the game in rest mode, it still resumes where I was at when I started the game. So having modern gaming conveniences, playing with your retro games with the backwards compatibility is one of the best things. And even though the Switch technically isn't backwards compatible, if you've got Switch Online and online expansion, you do have a lot of those retro games that you can play from your Switch, that you can create save states, and if you put it in rest mode and you come right back, you're exactly where you were. So just the backwards compatibility, whether it's actually playing old discs on the system, or if it's, you have access to those old retro games to play on your modern hardware, it's one of the most fantastic things, and I do love that aspect about modern gaming is the backwards compatibility, because then you never really miss out on a game. You don't have to go and find a system and then find a game unless it's a PS3 game. You can pretty much play almost any Xbox game now on your Xbox Series X. And I say almost, because unfortunately, a game I really do want to play, and I wonder if it's licensing things, I want to get 2K5, NFL 2K5. I do have a 360, but I don't want to get that out and hook it all up. I just want to play it on my Series X, but you can't play the disc on Series X, so I do have to get the 360 out if I want to play that. But again, there's backwards compatibility right there. I can still play that game without having to try go find an Xbox. And I don't even think the original Xbox had HDMI, so I'd have to play it on the CRT, where the 360 I can hook up to the modern TV with HDMI and play that game with probably better graphics too. So there's the list right there. It's a broken up top 10 list, top 7 things I love about retro games, and then top 3 things I love about modern games, modern conveniences, and things like that. So did I miss anything out on the retro games aspect? Let me know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and as always, have a great rest of your day. Take care now. Bye.